Sounds pretty good, Warren.
Thanks, bud. Thank you. We've had a couple of sound issues in the beginning, but it seems like we've got them all. We've all figured out. Just give it a couple of minutes, see if anyone else joins. I do have a hard stop at about 9:30 a.m. For me, probably like 7:30. But I might be able to stay on a couple of minutes extra if we've got some questions. But things are going actually fantastic. You know, we're in launch month. We wanted to get everything pushed out by the 14th, but we've just got a couple of things to finish off. We've got the website that some of you guys may have stumbled across is actually the website that we didn't like several weeks ago. Basically, we've paid a designer, and there was literally zero design work. You know, most of it was done in Wix, and myself and Tan both agreed that it's just not the impression that we want to give people. So we found a new web designer, and we're focusing on that really. We're also getting the white paper and some of the documentation professionally written, just because it seems a bit scrambled, really. The brand messaging is very important to us. Not so much for the market, but just to explain to people why their funds are safer with USDV, you know, compared to a traditional DeFi project. I think someone actually posted the link in the group about the Mark Cuban story about himself getting rug pulled with Titan. So it's very interesting that, you know, luckily we should be starting a discussion on regulated entities. You know, when you deal with other people's funds, it's very important that, you know, you consider them as other people's funds. A lot of these crypto projects, they see them as their funds. You know, they'll throw massive parties in Miami. You know, they'll book a private jet or something, and that's all on essentially, you know, the investor's expense. And that's not what we're about. You know, we're here to basically empower a lot of the unbanked and underbanked around the world, and, you know, explain to them, like, look, you know, crypto isn't this scary entity. Crypto is just a technology. You know, I always try and avoid using cryptocurrency. You know, I myself am an advocate for blockchain technology. So it's fantastic to see this discussion on regulation, because this is something personally I've been saying for the past couple of years. You can't avoid regulation, and a lot of these DeFi projects have swooped into a kind of gap in the market, and offering a lot of financial tools for these people. But, you know, in doing so, they're essentially giving some shitcoin, and the shitcoin is worthless. You know, we've had some people, when we've been speaking to partners about adopting USDV, you know, I mean, the thought process is always, wow, another stablecoin. And then we explain about perpetual yield and perpetual vaults and, you know, these kind of things. And like, okay, you know, it's a bit interesting, but here are some other projects. And then our answer is, yeah, but these other projects have been, you know, either scams or they've been hacked or whatever. And it's always upsetting when you see a good project with good potential, but either the founders get greedy or, you know, something goes wrong and someone takes advantage of the system, which is very important to us. That, you know, we don't want people to be able to take advantage of the system, because by extension, they're taking advantage of, you know, the community and shareholders. And so it's just not what we're about. You know, we're doing everything properly. You know, once we go, we're going to be able to go continuously. We're not going to have to shut down and fix a patch. We're not going to have to, you know, return funds or anything. So when we go, we're going to go big. So just in regards to the website, yeah, as I mentioned before, we're told. I actually had someone reach out to me and say, like, why is it built on Wix? You know, you can get a decent web designer and stuff. And that's exactly why we got we had to choose the new web designer, because we don't want to use Wix. It's not the impression that we want to give. And the white paper, although it explains everything, it's still kind of confusing if, you know, you're reading. And there hasn't really been an efficient way to communicate the message. So we've hired a fantastic writer. He's basically building on what we already have to explain things. He's very familiar with stablecoins. I'm hoping he can put his author name on the white paper, so you guys can get more information. But he's very clued up in the stablecoin space. He normally discusses a lot about regulation and the effect it will have on CBDCs, like central bank currencies. So yeah, this month we're going to be pushing the white paper and the website. So I know I did say this last month, but as you guys, as I just mentioned, the website just wasn't good enough. I think the project deserves a lot more than just, a $75 Wix website, pretty much. But June is the launch date. Without a doubt, we're going to be launching USDV this month, without a doubt. The payments platform we're expecting towards the end of the month. The pen test from the security audit firm we're expecting should be finished around the 27th. So we'll probably be pushing like a beta list next week, or maybe the week after, so people can just sign up and we can kind of offer some like beta accounts to to the first users, pretty much. I mean, if you look at other projects like Humble Pay, for example, Cash App or Venmo, these other projects, whether they're new or they're already well established, they're still working with limitations, and we don't want to work with limitations. The legal team with Gravinson, absolutely fantastic. Every time we say, hey, is this an option? It's either no or it's let me look into it. There isn't any blasé attitude. So they really understand that, obviously not just being one of the, I think possibly one of two, SEC regulated entities that govern a stablecoin. They understand the need to get everything, spot on, perfect. But yeah, there's no delay in launch. We're still launching in June. There's a couple of things that's affecting me personally, but nothing that's affecting the project. So I'm actually going to be based in Indonesia for the next couple of months to stay in the same time zone as the dev team. But nothing that will affect any partnerships or anything, because most of it is remote and working from home and speaking to different partners and entities in Europe or Middle East or South America. We're not looking at Africa just yet. We're still focusing on Southeast Asia and then Latin America, and obviously North America. We think this triangle of remittance is great from the get-go. Mostly because localization is very easy. The demand is very high. There's a lot of PR narrative around El Salvador at the moment. The El Salvador news is just fantastic. It's great for the industry. It's one big OTC desk, essentially. All of the Bitcoin in El Salvador is privately owned by the president or one of his entities. So it's not what the headlines are saying. It's not like people are going to be using Bitcoin around in stores and paying in hospitals and government buildings and stuff. But in terms of a government-owned crypto on and off ramp, it's more than fantastic news. So there is the opportunity for USDV to be essentially, an off-ramp, on-ramp partner in El Salvador. Obviously, you can understand that these guys have, hundreds of thousands of applicants. So once we launch and we get a bit of traction, it's much easier for us to break into El Salvador, for example. So that would be, one of the first great remittance partners, if we can get them. Then we also have, who else? So we also have several DeFi partners that we're speaking to distribute interest. So one thing that the legal team has confirmed is that we cannot distribute the interest ourselves, which is fine. That was never really, never really one of our goals. We always suspected, and that's essentially borderline security. So we didn't want to kind of embrace that kind of possibility. So what we're doing is working with if you're not already aware, USDV is essentially a perpetual yield stablecoin. You deposit USDV, you can use USDV just like any other stablecoin. In return, when you stake, you essentially earn, from 2.5 to 30% interest, depending on market rate. What we do is we withdraw that from reserve. We distribute to Vemanti stakeholders. Companies that Vemanti has a stakeholding in. We essentially loan that. We earn an interest rate. We return that to users. So it's a very sustainable form of interest yield. You look at these other kind of DeFi farm projects, you switch in between 10 in a day, you're committing atomic swaps, you're paying extreme high gas fees. And at the end of it, you get paid in some sort of shitcoin. And then by the time you go to sell this shitcoin, there's 100,000 other people that are trying to sell this shitcoin. So on paper, you might have $10,000, but by the time you cash out, you might be getting 500 or, if you're lucky, maybe 1,000. Because the only purpose of this shitcoin is to be sold. You know what I mean? There's no one really buying it. Most of it, you're just interacting with market makers or some other kind of, kind of balance tool. So this is why a lot of these DeFi projects are trying to expand now into different ecosystems. But the USDV ecosystem, the Vemanti ecosystem, we're focused on payments and remittance. We're not looking at, generating crazy amounts of yield. It's great to make $1 million in 1 year, but we want to make $1 million every year, for 100 years. So we're focused on sustainability. And it's just been fantastic from, Tan's attitude to the whole thing is very forward thinking. When everyone tells me I'm crazy, Tan's always saying that's a good idea. And I think that's the kind of, industry leader that we need right now, especially with all this hot topics of discussion of regulation, and especially this Mark Cuban article. I think it's funny that when billionaires cry about getting rug pulled and stuff, but it's a great talking point. It shows really that the whales themselves are not immune. That a lot of these whales are still human, and they're still they're still part of a community, because Mark Cuban wasn't the only one that's affected by Titan. Sure, the guy lost X amount of money, but he's got X amount of money already. What about the person that really believed in the project, really believed in the team? They only had $1,000 to the name. They threw it all on Titan, expecting maybe to get 2,000, maybe to get a few extra money, only to be scammed essentially. It's heartbreaking. It really is. And I was based in China during this time, and I witnessed firsthand, the kind of crazy MLM pyramid projects that are out there. And it really does hurt not just the industry, but it hits you in the feels basically. So what we're actually aiming to do with this is create financial independence to these people. We're not explaining to people, look, if you invest with USDV, if you work with USDV, you're going to be a millionaire. But we can definitely offer you a better rate than the banks. You're not going to be withholden to their kind of standards and practices. And then once we develop the ecosystem out, we'll be looking at lending on a retail level, and we'll be looking at payments, much more efficiently. If TransferWise use crypto, it would be the perfect tool. But with the cost that USDV, with the cost of USDV on a retail level, I actually don't think there can be another competitor. So I'm just really excited. I'm just really excited that we're actually in launch month. It's taken a long time. Before I met Tan, before I was introduced to Tan, I should say, I was really pushing regulation in the industry for quite a long time. And obviously, you can imagine 3 or 4 years ago, trying to speak to Bitcoin maximalists about we need regulation. These people you just used to tell me to F off, and I'm crazy, and I don't understand Bitcoin and stuff. And then now we actually have banks talking about issuing their own cryptocurrency. The industry has made leaps and bounds, but we're still, we might just be getting into the color phase, I guess. Of if we compare cryptocurrency to cameras, we're just seeing the first color camera now. So we're still in the infant stage, but at the rate that technology is going, it won't be long before we'll be at 3D movies in a couple of years. And what we're aiming to do is provide a safe alternative, to USDT and TUSD and these other kind of crazy inflated stablecoins. So I guess now's a good time to open the floor to anyone, if anyone has any questions. an open format, guys. Feel free to jump in anytime. It's a safe space, so to speak.
Hey, Warren. So I had a quick question about the ecosystem for USDV. Do you guys plan on expanding the ecosystem beyond entities that Vemanti has a stake in? I know that's like the whole point of the yield generating component of USDV, but like how far reaching could it be in your opinion?
So we're not adverse to working with other entities. The main reason that we want to focus on entities that Vemanti already has a stake in, one is obviously to improve, the Vemanti kind of turnover, and kind of build out this relationships that we have with these companies. If they grow, Vemanti grows pretty much. Another main reason that we're doing this is the security aspect. So we don't have to worry about an entity defaulting on a liquidity loan, for example, because with Vemanti essentially sitting with the board of directors, it's very easy for them to argue, no, we need to pay this debt first, for example, that kind of stuff. So it's not off the table, as long as it's a company that focuses on regulation, and we can meet them, preferably in person, and we have a good relationship with them. I honestly wouldn't really understand how that process would look now. We might look at like a convertible note process. We could also, look at some sort of collateralization. But the biggest focus is the loan is repaid. That's always the biggest focus. We are looking at options like Nexo insurance for possibly larger projects that need access to liquidity capital. But the two biggest things are they focused on regulation? Are they essentially scam proof almost? And then the second one is, are they going to be able to repay the loan? So the lending platforms are essentially, very low risk, and we're not focused on high risk investments. There's other capital providers, there's other entities out there that offer high yield but higher risk. And we're all about sustainability, reliability. We need to be held accountable. So at this stage, I can say it would be very difficult for us to see an entity. What's most likely going to happen is that we will probably launch our own entities, our own platforms, our own projects within the ecosystem that benefit each other. So that I could see that being the most straightforward path.
Okay, got it. Thanks.
No worries. And if anyone's got any ideas, feel free to send a DM. I might not be able to reply straight away. You can always post in the group and get other people. But we're all open to hearing your ideas and your thoughts.
Well, yeah. Sorry to cut anyone else off, but I remember I was like listening to this podcast that this dude. It's like it's a podcast all about Bitcoin, and he interviewed the CEO and the CTO, or the chief legal officer of Tether, and they're talking about how Tether's like end goal is to be used kind of as a payments platform. When they go to like a vendor, people pay for the product via Tether. But clearly right now, I don't think that's happening. But they're using Tether as the means for the cryptocurrency exchanges. So I guess, like, in your opinion, do you think USDV could be used as a means for the crypto exchanges, or is it mainly going to be more for business loans and for like remittance payments, things like that?
No, it's going to be used by exchanges for sure. It's definitely going to be used by exchanges. The reason exchanges, so what pisses me off about USDT is if I pay you in rice, that's basically the same as USDT, right? The only value that USDT has is, we both agree that it's $1, even though it's not actually worth $1. The path of USDT to adoption was essentially just giving these exchanges millions of tokens. This is how Binance were able to offer like 150 USDT for, joining, or they were offering like 25,000 USDT for trading competitions. because they basically just had an unlimited supply. The backing of USDT is like less than 3%. And I've got a few friends in the Bahamas, and they've told me that Deltec, the trust account, has been constantly in battles, because every year the Bahamas, regulators, they basically turn around and say you have to declare your assets, and Deltec had several billion missing. So obviously they've cracked down and been like, "Where's this?" And they've said, "Oh, the client owns this, or the client has this, or whatever." So there's basically just a few $1 billion that are not on the books in the Bahamas, or it's on the books and it's just not found. And I think that was probably one of the triggers for the SEC to investigate USDT. USDT settled with a fine, which is obviously a drop in the water considering they can print money, and people will rush out to buy it pretty much. The only other one that I would say is more reliable besides USDV would be USDC, but this is because it's governed by, it's also governed by an SEC governed entity. But as we know from personal experience trying to work with Circle, it's extremely difficult. They're very large, high numbers. They're not focused on underbanks and stuff. They're just more focused on trying to rush out adoption. But what happens when a better alternative comes out? If you look at other projects like USDS, they've only focused on a one-to-one model, which has been great, but they didn't really gain a lot of traction. And a lot of this is because USDT just kind of forced out other players by simply overwhelming the ecosystem. So when, if you're an exchange and you're looking for a stable coin, and USDT come along and say, "Hey, we'll just give you 5 million and then you don't have to worry about paying it back until later." Of course you're going to take that. So what pisses me off about USDT is it's just very under collateralized. And there's a lot of secrecy behind it. There's a lot of gray money. Since probably 2016, maybe even earlier, USDT was used a lot in illegal remittances. Being in mainland China, there was so many OTC agents that were essentially buying and selling USDT, and then transferring that to another country, and obviously operating with other crypto off-ramp partners. And then that caused China to crack down, and they issued the EUN. Was it 2 years ago? Last year, they actually did an airdrop around Shenzhen, where I used to live. So everyone that downloaded the virtual wallet received a random amount from $5 to from $1 to $50 to $600, for example. Almost like a lottery. So we can see that there's governments out there that see the potential of this. China's always been very forward. I think they are actually the world leader on digital payments right now in terms of adoption. But when it comes down to USDT, it really, really pisses me off just because it's so shrouded in mystery. There's no one held accountable. It's covered with loads of limited companies that don't hold any responsibility for what happens. And actually, you can see on the blockchain transaction explorers that you can see on the blockchain transaction explorers with USDT that when the SEC announced that they were investigating, USDT minting went into very uniform blocks. So if you look at USDC minting, you'll see like block 1911, $13,479,862, like a very random sequence. Because what happens is they group minters together and then they issue a block. But after the SEC announced they were investigating USDT, those minting blocks went to very uniform numbers: 10 million, 13 million, 18 million. It doesn't happen that way. That's not how stable coins are usually minted. So that's just another evidence that USDT is just printing money like it's nothing. So USDT is waiting to fail, honestly. It's not really a case of them being too big to fail. But I don't hold USDT. I do interact with USDT just because there's very little options out there right now. But I don't hold USDT any longer than I have to, essentially. So yeah, that's what pisses me off about USDT, basically.
Yeah, God, thanks for the answer. I mean, I feel like USDT, excuse me. Wow. It definitely is something that I would never hold. I think it's a scam. I think it's the next Bernie Madoff Ponzi scheme that's about to collapse, but that's my personal opinion. But anyway, thanks for giving your time. I'll give the floor to someone else.
No worries. Thanks, bud. Any other questions from anyone?
About the white paper, Warren, any updates or how's that going?
Yeah, so we've actually had the white paper finished for a while now, but the messaging just isn't. It's very hard to understand. I mean, the actual process is complicated. It's not by design. We haven't intended for that. But to work with regulation, unfortunately, it does have to be. It does have to be complicated. So we've obviously speaking to various partners the past couple of months before we've got to the launch this month. A lot of them find it difficult to understand really. We've spoken to several DeFi partners and they don't really understand it, mostly because it's sustainable yield. A lot of these DeFi projects are just basically you stake, we loan to margin traders or something, and then when we expire options, we return like some shitcoin. That's what they're kind of used to. But we're trying to explain to them, that we're coming from a capital marketplace. We're coming from a very sustainable, system that's been around for 80 years. So it's not unbelievable. It's just hard to process. So the graphic designer's already designed. He's already designed like some images and diagrams. We have a writer that's generating articles for us. So the plan is when we launch, we're going to be pushing like an article or two a week to generate some traction and force some traffic to the website, get people to sign up, etc. So we're getting a back catalog of those to essentially help us with the PR campaign. But we've asked him to basically rewrite the white paper for us. So the white paper is ready. It's very hard to understand. I think I've explained in previous calls the reason that we can't just go out there and start shouting about it now is if we say something and then it changes, people will lose trust in us. If we say something and the regulator spots it before we've got everything mapped out, they'll come after us and say, you've told people XYZ. Either that's changed or that's not a regulated process or that's illegal or something. So the messaging is extremely important. So for one example is we can't tell people that we can offer them a bank account because technically it's not a bank account, but we can call it a neobank or we can call it a virtual finance account. So if for example, in the white paper, we say, and then we can issue bank accounts or something, that could bring a lot of negative attention to us. We're not trying to fly under the radar, we're trying to be out there loud and proud, but the brand messaging is very important, not only to retain people's trust, but also to make the regulators happy. So that's the biggest issue we had. Otherwise, we'd be out there screaming and shouting about it now. So with the trust account, essentially, or the trust partners, I should say, because there's more than one. They basically said to us, these are the languages that we can't say. Like, for example, the trust account is like somewhat of an escrow account. So we've had to change some language there. That's the most recent change. So the legal team's been working with them, and then they've come back to us with essentially, a list of phrasing. So the professional writer I guarantee it's going to be much better. I mean, when someone asked me about the Wix website, one of the things I said was, well, we didn't tell you about the Wix website because we're not happy with it. So that's why we've got this new designer now, and the graphic designer's been fantastic. The writer's fantastic. He's very impressive. He's written some stuff for Binance Academy, which is like the learning page for Binance. So we're very confident that he's going to be able to explain things in a relatively easier way to understand. Because most of the people that we're going to be attracting in Southeast Asia or South America, they're not like us all. They're not like financially educated. They don't understand the term liquidity or capital. They don't have insurance. They never thought about it before. So that's essentially one of the challenges that we have is, not only just explaining to people why this is a better method than what they already have, but also financially educating them. Money makes money, right? It's very difficult to make $1,000 into 100,000, but 100,000 into 1,000,000 is inevitable. So we just want to educate people in the best way forward. And if we educate people and they go to a different, they choose a different process, or they go off to make hundreds of thousands trading, for example, that only benefits us, because then there's more financially educated people out there in the world. And once they compare USDV in the ecosystem to others that are available, or, that may come out in the future, they'll see that USDV is actually the best way forward, not just in terms of cost and pricing, but in terms of usability and the power that this one tool can have. It's great to have Venmo and Cash App and PayPal, but why can't we just have all in one? Why hasn't anyone been able to offer this all in one service before? And the answer is essentially just regulation. It's not really a technological aspect. Most of it is just no one's really found a way to be able to handle all of these. So with the adoption of cryptocurrency now is the best time to be a regulated entity looking at the DeFi space.
Thanks, Warren.
No worries, but I went on a bit of a rant there. Apologies. Any other questions, guys? How's everyone doing? Oh, sorry, mate. Go on.
I have another one if no one is asking.
Sure.
You're moving to Indonesia has to do something with what Tan mentioned some time ago about an acquisition there. Can you tell us something?
Yeah, it's actually just down to a visa issue with Vietnam. It's nothing exciting, unfortunately. So Vietnam is going through a kind of process of kicking out people that are working here illegally. And unfortunately, I'm one of them. Some people just kind of got caught in the crossfire. So when we've spoken to a lawyer, and he's basically just said it's easy just to leave the country and then return. Indonesia seems the best place because it's the same time zone, so it's going to be much easier to speak to the dev team. I already have the late night calls with the US and European time zones anyway. So it's much easier in terms of time zone. There's a very large crypto community in Indonesia. I mean, you can see the remittance channels and the TVL of some of the projects, it is phenomenal coming through Indonesia. There's also some partners that we want to speak to while I'm there, to try and onboard some practical use cases out the door. So I can say it's not, I'm not being sent to Indonesia, but while I'm there, there's multiple things that I can be working on for sure.
Thank you. Well, good luck there.
Thanks, mate. It's actually, yeah, the crypto community in Indonesia is, most of it is expats that just moved there to reside there. And a lot of it is the people on the ground. Unfortunately, there is a bit of a wave across Southeast Asia of, these pyramid projects, and people are still losing money. And what we're not aiming to do it, but one of the byproducts of USDV is these people are going to be able to basically trust projects again, is what we're hoping to do. Essentially going over there and saying, instead of having, gambling and trying to get 100%, wouldn't you rather have a guaranteed 10%? That's much safer than trusting some random projects. So there's definitely a lot of stuff that we can be working on in Indonesia. I'm a huge believer personally in that everything happens for a reason. So there must be a reason that I'm sent to Indonesia for sure. I think Tan does have some connections there. He's going to introduce me to some people that we can speak to, which is definitely going to be interesting, especially in this climate now with COVID. Remittances have gone through the roof. This Mark Cuban story about demanding more regulation, not just with stablecoins, but in the cryptocurrency industry. Everything just seems to be perfect timing. So everything is literally falling into place. We have partners. We have partners that heard the project and said no thanks. And then a couple of weeks later, they come back to us and say, actually, do you guys have any more blah blah blah. So it's just perfect timing. Literally is just perfect timing. I'm actually getting really excited about the project as we get closer to launch. I'm really excited to be able to push more stuff out there. And once we get the documents kind of signed off by the legal team and TAN, like guarantee the group is going to be the first place that we push it out.
Hey, so Warren, I guess one more quick question I had. I was curious to see, what is the plan for like marketing coin? I know you said you can't like advertise buying USDV due to regulations, things like that, but is there a way that you guys have a plan to push adoption aggressively?
Yeah, so the way that we're going to be pushing adoption is by working with different partners. We can't distribute the interest ourselves. We have to basically hand over the interest to another entity and then have those distribute. But the way really that we're going to be pushing adoption is through the perpetual yield. If people are staking USDC and they're getting 5%, and then they look at USDV and they're getting 15, 20 or something because of the subsidized interest, it's essentially a no-brainer. Once we get the kind of market cap up, that's when we're going to see some large, like an apex of adoption, really. Not just, and it's literally not just down because of the lack of options in the marketplace. Most of it is what we're hoping is the transparency. I mean, we're here, we've got nothing to hide. We're telling people, the process, the partners that we work with and stuff. And the payments platform as well, the remittance and payments and savings, everything kind of all in one. That's going to be such a useful tool for people in, say, Bangladesh, where there's heavy capital constraints, or South America, where there's a severe lack of banks and trust of the government. So it's really just about explaining the options to people, financially educating them, and then, seeing growth that way. Besides that, we have, the usual kind of SEO and Facebook targeting ads and this kind of stuff. But that's really down with marketing and their kind of roadmap in terms of pushing it out. We've also got some good partners for PR narrative that's going to be spreading the message out there. And then obviously we've got the interviews and some media outlets that are interested. So in terms of adoption, I mean, the process is very simple. We explain, we show the product, we explain what it is. And there's no doubt that someone, why would you have 7 different apps? You know what I mean? Why wouldn't you just have one that can do everything? And on top of that, it's, an SEC regulated entity. One of the most strict rule sets, on the planet right now. So yeah, that's basically the path to adoption. It's quite simple.
Got it. Thanks, Warren. Appreciate the answer.
No worries, bud. No worries. I'm here at your guys' beck and call. I do apologize for the lack of attention to the group and stuff. It's just a bit of a crazy time. Obviously, migrating to another country, and then obviously USDV is the focus. So trying to work around everything. I do severely apologize for the lack of comms.
One last question is, are you familiar with VNDAO or VEX in Indonesia, or does that have anything to do with what's going on?
I'm not actually. I'm not aware of those projects. Once I arrive, I have to do a quarantine. So during that quarantine period is a good time to. I'm actually doing the quarantine in Jakarta. So I'll be able to have a couple of meetings straight after quarantine. So while I'm over there, that's when I'm going to dedicate a lot of time to learning about the landscape. I've got some friends that already live in Bali and Gili T, and they're going to introduce me to a lot of the crypto community there. I've heard there's quite a few whales on the island, which is going to be interesting. Interesting to see and meet and see what kind of pull that we can get from there. But I'm not right now. I'm not familiar with any other crypto projects firsthand.
Okay, thanks. Good luck.
Thank you. I don't actually think that we'll need luck, to be honest. The interest from a lot of the partners is quite phenomenal. Every day it seems like we get a couple more messages of people asking, "Is it ready yet? When can we integrate?" There's actually we're working with a guy who's been in the industry since like early stages, 2012, 2013. They actually have a decentralized exchange. So they actually really love the project, and they kind of have a similar opinion in the way that the industry is going. So they're probably going to be the first partner that we announce with straight out the door. And then besides that, there's obviously some of the bigger players that we can't mention just yet. But it's going to be really interesting. June and July are going to be very, very cool months for us. And then after that, it's just a snowball effect. We're really, really excited for sure.
Warren, can you disclose who would be auditing who will be the auditors? You mentioned one of the big four, I guess. No, can you mention?
Yeah. Do you mean security? Do you mean security audit or the financial audit?
Both.
So we've been speaking to Certic, and we've been speaking to Halborn. Basically, two different scales. One is obviously better for PR, and then one is better for the actual security of it. So we're trying to find a decent balance between the two. On top of that, the smart contract itself has already been audited multiple times. I'm not too sure who. I actually think by Certic, QuantStamp, and Halborn themselves. So we don't have any risk appetite on that front. In terms of the financial audit, because we're an SEC regulated entity, it's we're basically fully disclosing everything anyway. So there's no qualm really for those. One of the firms that we spoke to is Cohen & Co. For the audit, but the only thing that's putting us off is we're not sure how applicable that would be, because they essentially just look at the accounts with the trust partners, and then they look at our accounts and they say, okay, it's fine. If we're going to be audited, we want the auditor to take it seriously almost. Not to say that Cohen & Co. does not take it seriously. Just that at this point, we're not too sure of the benefit of, besides optics, for example, we're not too sure of the benefit of having a third-party auditor come in, look at the bank account and say, yep, it's all there. You know what I mean? But those companies who we've been speaking to for security and financial audits. Are the any other questions, guys?
Yeah, Warren, I just have a statement. I mean, we've been doing some research and on what's that? Vendao and Vex, and on their website they show a lot. Okay, that's fine. They list USDV. It's on their website quite a bit. So we were just kind of a little confused as to what that is. Especially concerning that's going to be our coin. So
yeah.
So it's more just a statement than it was a question. Just kind of a heads up. That's all.
No, that's fine. If someone could drop the names of those projects, I'll have a quick look later today.
Okay.
Yeah. Right now, we haven't made any partners public, so we're not too sure if this is someone. We are aware of another project called USDV, but they don't have anything. They don't have any technology or backing them, and it might just be a case of them having the same name. But once the smart contract go live, we'll be registered on CoinMarketCap and CoinGecko and all these kinds of other things. But this is kind of the difficulty that we have in the space right now. This is why we want to try and stay away from usual DEXs, decentralized exchanges, because it's very easy for someone to just make a USDV pool, and even Uniswap themselves have a disclaimer that says check the smart contract address. So this is why we want to try and stay away from DEXs, to avoid people basically buying the wrong token, or kind of getting lost in a totally different ecosystem. But I'll do some double checking to make sure. But as far as I'm aware, we haven't declared any partners yet. So it's either a case of these people trying to ride on the brand, or it's a totally different USDV, which we'll have to send some sort of cease and desist, or something to dissuade them from using the name. Any other questions, guys? Feel free to jump in. I'm going to have to jump off shortly, but more than happy to answer any of the questions that you guys have. Alrighty. Thanks, guys. Let me just check. Yeah. What was the other project? Vindal and VEX?
Yeah, Neo will. He found it out this morning and started connecting dots, and so I'm sure he can post some stuff tomorrow or send it to you. He shared it with us this morning, so we were just a little concerned or excited. So yeah, we'll get that to you, man.
Thanks, guys. Thank you very much. Really appreciate it.
Thank you.
This is going to happen a lot, to be honest. It's unfortunately, this is like just a byproduct of the underbelly of crypto. But we have a lot of protections in place to avoid people kind of misusing the name and stuff. So I wouldn't be too concerned at this stage. I really appreciate you guys giving me the heads up. That's fantastic. Great work from the community. Thank you, guys. So I guess I'm going to jump off now. If feel free to tag me in the chat, and if I don't respond, in 24 hours, feel free to just like quote your message or something and tag me again. Because I really am interested in answering any questions you guys have. I'm not trying to avoid you or anything. I just don't pay attention to the phone and stuff. So by all means, just hound me, tag me, once or twice a day, and I promise you I'll get around to it. And I apologize if I've missed anyone's questions in the past. But just hound me. I honestly don't mind when it comes to you guys.
Thanks for taking the time to talk to us. We appreciate it.
No worries, guys. I really appreciate you guys joining. Sorry, DW. Did you have a question?
Have a nice day in Indonesia.
I'm moving to Indonesia around the 23rd. So I've still got some business to wrap up in Vietnam. We have to get the dev team basically, just so they know, we just have to get the dev team all synced up, which everyone is really, but just with me not being here, I just want to make sure that there's not no one's slacking really. No one's going to be playing video games, for example, when we've got a deadline. But the team's excited, everyone's happy. We only really work with the team's all on board with it, but we only really work with people that are excited about us as well. And if there's a partner that's unsure with us, we always say, look, just wait a couple of weeks. We're not going to be able to offer you the same level of attention, for example, and that's essentially on them. But most partners that we spoke to have been quite excited about it. And the more the discussion comes on regulation, I think a lot more partners see the longevity of USDV. So it's really an exciting time, to be honest. June is definitely crunch for sure. Alrighty then, guys. I'll chat to you guys in the group. I'll look forward to having another conversation with you guys next. What's the date today? 18th, 25th. Hopefully we can do another call next week because I'll be in quarantine. So I'll be able to give you guys a bit more of a sneak peek, really. of the work that we push out, and we'll most likely have everything being published towards the end of this month as well. White paper, website, and even the actual products themselves, which is going to be exciting. So looking forward to it, guys. Tag me in the group, hound me, more than happy to answer questions, and have a great weekend, everyone.
Warren, thank you.
Thanks, Warren. See you, man.
Thanks, Warren.
Thanks, Warren. Bye.
Thank you.
Bye.